Thank you very much. See you Wednesday.
Cheers, Tom.
Okay, Rob Tanner, please.
Hi, Brendan.
Okay, Rob.
Yeah, good, mate. You mentioned about the youngsters that you might have a look at on Wednesday night. The Academy's played a big part in the Leicester City story over the last 5 years. We've seen a number of players come through and be given the opportunities in the first team. With the financial aspect of the pandemic, is the role of the Academy now even more important going forwards over the next few years?
Yeah, it's a good point, Rob. I think for clubs where young players is in their DNA, it will always be important. And for coaches and managers that see young players and development, it will always be important. But yeah, there's no doubt. I think that the financial restrictions now on clubs and also the investments that actually are going into academies and with the rule changes and everything else, yeah, it's going to be really important that you can continually develop players to come from within your academy. From a personal perspective, it's my first look. My first look will always be to the young player, because, as I said, you might have a £20 million player in your academy. And sometimes you won't know until you put them in, but they have to show the qualities, absolutely, that you would want, and not just the talent, in order to put them in the first team. But yeah, it is going to be very important in the current climates.
On the back of that, has the club changed in any way or evolved its policy on the academy in terms of the investment? Is there more of a priority now towards the under-23s and the academy?
Well, no, I think there's no more or less important. I think that, as I said, over the time here and my time, in youth, Leicester was a club that would have always looked to develop young players, and I come here now, years later, as the manager, and it's still that. There's still it's still so important. I think where the adjustment now will be is that where the ambitions of the club are and where we want to be, then that will require a certain profile and level of player. So if you're for example, if you're a championship team in the championship, then of course there's a level of player there that can come into your team. If you're in the top 10 or top tier of the Premier League, then it's a different requirement. There's a different profile. There's a different level of player, and that's not easy. That's not easy. But I would hope by the work that will go on here, and in terms of recruitment and the development of talent, that we can look to produce players here consistently. It's not easy, of course, but I'm a manager who looks to youth, will play youth, and will always hope that we can produce players.
Thank you.
Thanks, Rob.
Okay, Jordan Blackwell, please.
Hi, Brendan.
Hi, Jordan.
What do you say to youngsters when they are coming in potentially for their debut to make sure that they take the chance that's given to them?
Normally when I play young player, they'll feel the confidence of myself going into the game initially. That's why you'll play them. And then I think leading into the game, it's just about taking that fear away from them, so they don't have to force it. It's not one where I say to players, you got to take this chance. This might be your only chance. Because if that's the case, then you don't have a real belief in them and the process. Because you don't want them to force it. You just want them to go out and play with enthusiasm and play their natural game, all within the structure. They'll have to have a certain profile in order to play in our team. And then it's all about, are they a working talent? So, but it's giving them the confidence initially to play, and just asking them to, try not worry. You'll have nerves, and nerves are good for you. But just go and play your natural game, and know that you'll make mistakes in the game, but get on with it and do your very best.
Presumably, those young players will probably be looking at someone like Luke Thomas, who was obviously given his chance at the end of last season. did very well and is now a fully fledged member of your first team squad. Presumably that will give them a real confidence going into if a player gets his chance in midweek.
Yeah, Jordan, he's a great example, look, of a player who, in all fairness, he came to the fore in training. I wasn't necessarily watching him so much in the under-23s because they can play in the games. It's when he came into the first team environment, you could tell straight away he had the personality. He had composure, he had quality. He needs to get physically better, but that's time. That's just going to be over the period. But so I think he's a great reference for them, that if you come into the first team and you show up in training and you have the personality as well as the quality, there's a manager and a coaching staff here that will look to throw you in. So for a young player, that's what you want. You want the opportunity. And that's what we'll always do here.
Thank you.
Cheers. Thank you.
Okay, John Percy, please.
Hi, Brendan. You're on.
Hi, John. Okay.
Yeah, good, thanks. This might be a bit of a left field one, but the forecast for Wednesday night is supposed to be sort of minus 7 degrees. I was just wondering, does that go through your mind at all when you're preparing a team? I'm talking like with Jamie coming back from injury, with the weather being so cold. Does that ever sort of come into your mind at all?
Well, it was funny. We were talking about that this morning in our staff meet, just in terms of sort of the game time that we look towards players. Whether it was 45 or 60 minutes, we wanted to give some players, and definitely in those conditions, you have to consider that. Is it worth putting them out for that extra 15 minutes if you've got out of them what you want for 45 due to the risk of injury and anything else? So you can't not say it's a factor, because it definitely is.
Just finally, I just wondered, Danny Simpson, is he playing for the 23s tonight?
He will have involvement, John. I think that when John Rudkin spoke to me on it, because we've taken a lot of players from the 23s that are working with us now, to try and ensure we have got numbers in our training, and also with a view to maybe playing for the first team. And Danny's someone that can come in. He's obviously not attached to a club at the moment, and he's not blocking the path of any young player. So I think it's a really good opportunity for him to come in and get some game time, but also for our younger players to learn of someone of that experience.
So it's just basically to help him get himself fixed up somewhere. Yeah,
and also help our younger players. I think sometimes that's what's missing now in under-23 football, where that in the olden days, I say olden days, days gone by, some of the young players, they were playing alongside experienced players who'd achieved things and done things in the game, and they could learn from them. You don't get that so much now. And I think that can be important for young players. So someone like Danny, who's a really good guy, he can help us, and we can help him in getting back to fitness.
Thank you. Cheers, Brendan.
Cheers. Thank you.
Okay, we'll go to Graham Hill and then Dave Armitage, please. Graham.
Hi, Brendan. It was just something picking up on something you said earlier in the broadcast about the working relationship with directors and managing Leicester, and I think you said it was pure gold. And by that, do you mean it's the ideal balance where you can challenge for honours, but perhaps not have the that maybe you did at Liverpool and Glasgow? I mean, I just wondered if you struck an ideal balance now as a manager here.
No. Listen, there's of course, when you work at the two clubs that you mentioned, there's always that pressure, of course. But it's something that I brought that similar pressure to here. Of course, it's different because you're at Liverpool and Celtic, you're expected. Here, the expectation is within ourselves to challenge. We know where we, when I said when we came into here, it was could we consistently challenge the top six. The hierarchy in the league it's been there for numbers of years. So, but I think it's more, I was talking more in terms of pure gold, not so much of pressure, just about relationships.
Yeah.
I think that the support network that I have around me here from a manager's perspective is is fantastic. Like I said, Susan does an amazing job dealing with all aspects of the club from a commercial perspective and supporting everything that goes on in the day-to-day running. We have really good, clear communication, and we can be very open in certain aspects, well, in all aspects. So that's great. She never tells me what team to pick. She doesn't tell me who to have on the bench. She doesn't throw in who's playing well, who's not. She's just there as a wonderful support. And then I have John, who's been here for many, many years, who operates as the director of football. And John's there in an office beside me, and we chat and constantly look at the present and the future of the club. So from a management perspective, take away expectations. It's just operationally how that runs. And for me, that's what I would talk about when I talk about pure gold. I can concentrate on football, the strategy of football, the football department, and then around that, I have wonderful support.
I wouldn't expect you to compare that to other of your previous clubs, but is it fair to say that you're allowed to take your own view on the FA Cup in terms of playing younger players? It's a decision you're allowed to make, and the club have confidence in you to make that decision.
100%.
Yeah. Great. Thanks, Brendan.
Okay.
Cheers, Graham.
Last one for Dave then, please.
Hi, Brendan.
Hi, Dave.
How are you? Okay.
Yeah, good, thanks. Thank you.
Thawed out.
Oh, that was freezing, wasn't it?
My missus said to me, "Oh, you're cold." I said, "Well, go and sit in the garden for 4 hours, and you'll see what happens. That's what it's like."
I bet you had the pajamas and the dressing gown on last night.
I thought you were going to say dress then. I was going to say no.
Well, of course, that wouldn't surprise me either.
Oh yeah, well, I'm of that age, mate. I'm of that age. You were talking the other week with some clarity about, Leicester. Quite incredible that the four times they've been to the final, and a team of this standing and their history, and not winning the FA Cup. And Brighton are also a team that have never, and not of the same stature possibly, but they've never won the FA Cup either. But I'm guessing you were born in '73, so I'm guessing that in '83, you'd have been 10, obviously, or 9, whichever way it cuts. You would have been a young boy interested in football and would have seen that Brighton FA Cup final, which is probably the most famous example of a smaller team not winning the FA Cup with and Smith must score. I just wondered, do you recall that? Because you'd have been right at that age of you were perhaps just, watching football and stuff like that then.
Yeah, I remember that was the replay, wasn't it? It was 4-1.
Yeah.
Finished 4-1, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it was, I think back then you were probably always with the underdog, weren't you, in a lot of these games. And like you say, everyone was looking at that at that time, but with Brighton, and then obviously in the replay they ran out winners, and I remember I think it was Ray scored a great chip. Scored a real good goal. So yeah, no, that was. Listen, and the FA Cup is folklore, isn't it, amongst us all who've grown up watching it and all the games, because that was your real introduction as a guy into when you'd know Sky and you'd know other TV. It was that on that FA Cup day that it started early morning and then right the way through, and that gave you the great insight into the players at that point, because you wouldn't. There wasn't the same exposure or anywhere near the same exposure, so you never got to find out. But people, and then you'd watch the FA Cup and you would hear Dean Saunders on the coach laughing, impersonating people, and you got to find out about people, didn't you? So and then obviously you watched the game. So yeah, but no, at that age, yeah, of course I was right into my football.
I think what I was getting at really was, the FA Cup being such a prestigious tournament, etc., and like Coventry, people there still all these years later remembered for that Houchin or whatever. And it can be such a thin line, can't it? Football matches in general and big occasions in general, where Gordon Smith even called his autobiography, and Smith must score, because he is remembered for that, and it just goes. down in, like you said, in folklore and in history, and that's how close it can be.
Well, that's it, and that's what they say, isn't it? That the margins are inches, but the consequences are massive, and that's why that little bit of luck and everything else is needed in this game. You know, sometimes you need the ball to drop for you. You need the footballing gods with you as well. So yeah, it's but it's the beauty of the cup, because they are sometimes the one-off games, and you need that bit of luck and that bit of quality as well to win them. So yeah, both teams will go into the game Wednesday looking to get through into a quarter-final and get their way through to a final.
Well, I hope the footballing gods are with you.